Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Woo Curious podcast. Your map to the mystical, your key to the sacred, and your guide back home to yourself. I'm Eileen, a writer, a spiritual coach, energy healer, and slow living witch. This podcast is your invitation to explore a world where the mundane and the sacred intertwine. It's a haven for those ready to take the first steps into the realms of magic and mystery, providing a safe space for you to embark on your own enchanted journey towards healing and self-discovery. Here, I'll unveil the whispers of the mystical, the rituals often hidden in plain sight, and I'll engage in sacred conversation intended to stir your soul and lead you back into your power. I'm all about demystifying woo and witchcraft. So, whether you're a seasoned seeker or simply woo curious, I'm so delighted you've decided to join me on this journey. Let's make magic. Hello, Woo Crew, and welcome back to another episode of the Woo Curious podcast. I am your host, Eileen, and I'm here today with a short and sweet episode all about the summer solstice. So this episode is coming out a week late. I really meant to have it in your ears by this time last week because the solstice itself greeted us on June 20th, on Friday. And as always, I held beautiful ceremony for this event. And I hope that you had a moment or were able to find some space and time to celebrate the day that is the longest in the year. I'm actually recording this on summer solstice, so in that way, we're right on time. But as I said, I had been hoping to get it to you ahead of time so you could sit with some of the teachings from today's episode and the offers of ritual and ceremony. That being said, if you're listening to this on Monday, you're only a couple of days past that peak light energy. You're still very much within the energies of the solstice. It's not too late to sit and tap in and tune in and honor this moment of the year. So summer solstice, and if you've been with me for a while, you may have noticed that I've shifted my languaging here a little bit. And I used to call this celebration in the Wheel of the Year Litha. And Litha is the modern pagan word or Wiccan word for this celebration. I still use it occasionally. It's much more succinct. It's easier to fit onto Canva graphics, for instance. But in the Celtic tradition that I'm more and more leaning into and rooting back into, they didn't use this term, Litha. They used the word, well, they may not have used the term summer solstice either, but likely they did because solstice, the word solstice, is from the Latin solstitium, meaning sun stands still. And so we have the two solstices in the year, right? We have winter solstice and we have summer solstice. And sun stands still is pointing to the fact that for these 3 days around the solstice, it appears as though the sun sets and rises in the exact same place. It's almost as though these 3 days, there is no lengthening or shortening. And that's, if we think about it in the terms of, this is a moment of almost pause and shift. And so the day before solstice itself, and then the day after, the difference in the length of the light is almost imperceptible because the sun is getting ready to start to reduce. That's not the way I want to say it, but you know what I mean. Like the days are on that cusp. It's like this pause before the days become shorter again. And it's a really beautiful moment of the year to sit in reflection and to allow the sun's rays to really illuminate what lives inside of us. It's akin in a lot of ways to full moon energy. And one of the things that we often do around full moons or on full moons is do shadow work, what is called shadow work. And basically the idea being that with the light in the night sky casting its illumination, we can see into places that might usually be in the shadow. And much like that full moon, the summer solstice, the sun on the solstice, it's bright where I am for almost the whole 24 hours. It'll still be a hint of light in the sky this evening, aside from the cloud cover we have, but a hint of light in the sky this evening at 11 p.m. And by 4 in the morning, you'll know that the sun's going to start coming up. And so there's this sense again that the sun's light is illuminating what otherwise might live in the shadows. So it's a really beautiful time for doing some of that shadow work, working on self-love, growth, healing, protection, all of those things. And again, I'm speaking if we're in the northern hemisphere. If any of you are listening to me from the southern hemisphere, you're in the opposite energy, right? You're in the long dark of night of winter solstice, often called Yule. And one of the things that I'm recently kind of leaning into a little more, learning more about, is the fact that while often we speak of, the lunar energies as more feminine energies, the solar energies as more masculine energies, there is a lot of feminine energy associated with the solstice as well. In the Celtic world, there are various deities, a few deities associated with the sun, and the sun herself is feminine in the language. And so there's Lu, who is masculine, Lu, the shining one. We'll talk more about Lu and his story at Lunasa, which is coming up at the end of July and marks the beginning of the season of autumn and harvest in the Celtic calendar. And then there's Ain, and I'm not entirely certain I'm pronouncing her name right, but she is a solar goddess as well. And there are many goddesses, hearth goddesses, typically associated with this time of year, like Hestia, Brigid, Baba Yaga, Frigga, Hole, and Ain. And it's a really powerful time of almost matriarch energy, right? Again, akin to that full moon energy, the energy of fertility, of ovulation. If we're in a female body that ovulates, it's creative, it's sensual, it's fertile, it's abundant, it's life-giving, right? And the female body is a life-giving form. And so even though some of those energies we often think about as being kind of more typically masculine, the powerful, the doing energy, the active, there is still a really potent and powerful feminine aspect and quality to this particular moment in time. And it is associated with water and flowers as well as fire. So fire is definitely associated with this time. We've got the big fire in the sky. There's lots of fire traditions associated with this, and I'll share a few of them here, but it's also this time of connecting with the abundance of the land, the flowers, and the waters of the land too. It's a popular time for visiting sacred well sites and streams for supernaturally obtained wisdom. And as with so many of our ancient rites, our ancient ceremonies and celebrations, there is a Christian overlay here as well. The Midsummer water rites were overlaid by the feast of St. John the Baptist, who was a watery guy. And it's also customary, or was customary, to harvest St. John's wort on this day in honor of him. I'm getting a lot of this information. I'd like to just take a moment to pay my respects here to Carmen Spagnola, as always, in her beautiful book, The Spirited Kitchen, where I get so much wealth of information. Some of the information I'm sharing with you here today is from her, from there. Some of it I've collected through various sources of my own and learned on my own. One of the fun things about this celebration is, in addition to being called Summer Solstice or Litha, you may very well, probably, have heard it referred to as Midsummer. And when I first started learning about the Wheel of the Year, before I recognized or knew or understood about the seasons and the way the Celtic peoples interpreted the seasons, and our ancient European ancestry really looked at the seasons, it always was confusing to me. Even when I was young, I was thinking, what midsummer? Why is this time of year called midsummer? It's the beginning of summer. Because in our current calendar, at least in North America, we consider the solstice to be the first day of summer. But as with all the solstices and equinoxes, or both the solstices and both equinoxes, in that more agrarian calendar, it marked the midway point of summer, right? We are in the summer season of Bealtaine or Beltane. It began with May 1st. It ends when Lunasa greets us on August 1st. And this is the midway point. This is the peak, and it makes so much sense. It's the peak solar energies. It's the peak of the light, and summer is all about the light and the sun. And so we have midsummer. It's also one of the 3 moments in the year that are the most liminal. And we talked a little bit about this at Bealtaine as well, and how it was a liminal time where the fae were maybe more likely to come out and play. This is another fae liminality kind of moment of the year. And you can it's fun to follow back and make note of how this weaves into culture. And so we have Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, and the fairies come out to play, right? The fae come out to play. And so it is a good time to offer blessings to the fairies, to the fae folk. It is a time where they might pass more easily into our mortal world, specifically at twilight. And so protection measures are another theme of any of these liminal times, but especially Beltane and Midsummer, because the fae folk don't abide by the same rules as we do. They have a very different set of rules in their lives, and they might be here to cause mischief more than at Samhain when our ancestors come. And obviously we can have unwell ancestors too. So there is always a sense of needing to do some protective spell work, as it were, or ritual around these times. Another piece of mythology around Midsummer is the battle between the Oak King and the Holly King. And these two, I've read in a couple different sources that have differing opinions about when this battle takes place. It takes place twice a year, that they all agree on. Most commonly, I've read that it takes place on the solstices, and that makes the most sense to me. So at the summer solstice, when the Oak King and the Holly King battle, the Oak King represents daylight and the sun and the light. And at this moment of the year, he loses the battle to the Holly King, who represents the darkness and the night. And so that's why from this day forward, the days become shorter, the nights become longer. The Holly King has won. And then at the winter solstice or Yule, they fight again. And in that battle, the Oak King wins and the days lengthen. The oak tree is actually also the Ogham tree, the sacred Ogham tree for the month of June, for this moment of year. And it's such a sacred tree to the Celts in general. It was a really prominent place in a lot of their mythology. It was the sacred tree of the Druids. The word oak actually means doorway, and it was thought to be a doorway into other realms. And so it's a really kind of powerful metaphor as we move into this part of the year. Traditions that would have been carried out by our ancestors. Bonfires. Burn the bonfires. There's always bonfires, celebrating around fire, and it makes so much sense, right? Fire is life, fire is creativity, fire is warmth. It allows us to live as humans. And so burning oak and aromatic herbs would have been really common. Carrying blazing torches sunwise around homes and fields to bless them, and that's part of that blessing and protection. Staying up through the night, dancing around bonfires, jumping over bonfires, giving gifts of herbs and nature's bounty. Tree worship, again, oak trees near fountains and wells, decorating these places with colorful cloths. It's a solstice is a doorway or a threshold, right? We're crossing into that next half of the year. I don't want to say second half, but another half of a year, because with cyclical time, which half came first, right? And again, the Celts would light bonfires on hilltops, showing this kind of polarity too between land and the sky. It's a time, even though the balance isn't there, we've shifted way towards the light, right? Those outward energies. All the solstices and equinoxes draw attention to the idea of balance. And so fire and water, night and day, light and dark, symbols of opposition are all wrapped up here. It's a beautiful time to align yourself with the powerful energies of the sun and of summertime. It's a great time for expansive ideas, for business or going after your goals or desires, pursuing action, taking action. It's also a beautiful time for giving gratitude for the earth's bounty, right? We have the beautiful flowers in bloom at this time of year. We know that harvest is coming soon. It's a lovely moment to pause as well and acknowledge all the success so far in your year. Find gratitude for what has come, looking ahead to what's coming, and to pause and notice the growth from the seeds that you planted in the dark of winter and in early spring at Imbolc. A question for perhaps for you to take into your summer solstice practice or ceremony or moment of pause and reflection for yourself is to tune in and ask yourself, what is your inner brightness? We just wrapped up a week of Shine, a journey to your authenticity last week. You can still sign up and catch the replays for that if you want. This is very much in the theme of summer. And so, what is the light within you that you want to bring into the world? How do you want to show up and shine this season or this turn of the wheel? I'd encourage you to take some time, light a candle, or if it's beautiful outside, go outside. If you're able to have a fire, lovely, but find a way to honor the sun. And maybe that's just going outside barefoot, face to the sun, standing in gratitude and allowing the sun to illuminate what lives inside you that wants to shine forth. Okay, I'm going to wrap us up there. As I said, short and sweet. And I hope that you were able to celebrate summer solstice or that you're able to find some time this week to carve out a moment to celebrate. We begin our next round of Unleash Your Inner Witch tomorrow, Tuesday, the 24th. So if that's a space that's been calling you, come on in. We'd love to have you join us there. It's a beautiful way to stay grounded and have a little bit of a tether point or an anchor point as we move into summer, because summer can be so much of a whirlwind. It can be very hectic. We've got a lot on the go. And so creating a practice, setting aside time for you each week for 6 weeks, that's it, 1 hour, 6 weeks of, oh yeah, this is my moment of pause. And I can guarantee that it's going to infuse your summer with so much more magic. I just love this space so much. So shoot me a message over on Instagram at I am Eileen March if you have questions or want to know more. My website has all of the details and I would love to see you inside. Okay, that's it. That's all. As usual, if you like this episode, please share it with a friend, rate, review, subscribe, comment, all of the things, depending on whatever platform you are on. And as always, I will be with you back here this time next week. I'll see you then. Bye for now.